Looking at the eight covenants of God again, and particularly the land covenant. We can find that the land covenant recorded in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 through 10. And this covenant was made with Israel after they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and just before they were to enter the promised land, the land that God had promised to Abraham and his prosperity. God had previously reminded Israel that if they obeyed the Mosaic law, he would bless them, and warned that disobedience would bring his cursing upon them. And you find that in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 68. The land covenant contains some special promises to Israel and will not be completely fulfilled until the millennial reign of Christ. And I know there's people that don't, the Roman Catholics and those that believe in amillennialism, which is that there will be no millennial reign of Christ. That's occurring now, which isn't correct. But so this is won't be fulfilled until the millennial reign. All right. One is even though they are just getting ready to enter the promised land, the covenant is established and foresees the worldwide dispersion of Israel. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1. And the covenant foresees Israel turning back to God in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2. Because of their repentance, God would gather them from all the nations where he had scattered them. That's in Deuteronomy 30, chapter 30, verse 3. The covenant promises that Israel will be restored to their own land, the land of Israel. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 3 through 5. And we've seen that in 1948 when Israel was restored to her land. It promises judgment on Israel's enemies, those that hate them and persecute them. And we see that in Deuteronomy 30, chapter 7, verse 7, Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 7, and in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. This also promises blessing and abundance for restored Israel in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 9 through 10. And the land will be Israel's forever unconditionally in Genesis chapter 48, verses 3 through 4. If we go back in time and see that Ishmael, the half-brother of Isaac, and his descendants were to be a great nation, but they are not to possess the land. So Ishmael's descendants are not a party to this covenant. However, they have been fighting for this territory for hundreds of years, and this is the root of all the conflicts against Israel today. You can see more about that in Genesis chapter 21, verse 18. In May of 1948, the people of Israel began returning to the land that God had promised them, and it is Israel's for an everlasting possession. Genesis chapter 48, verses 3 through 4. Much of this covenant has yet to be fulfilled and will be complete in the millennial reign of Christ when he sets up his kingdom in the last days after the tribulation. Thank you for listening.